In keeping with some videos I've done relatively recently about my thoughts on the importance of physical media, and just to celebrate my love of movies, but also to tie it into what this channel is more typically about, which is frankly, most of my videos are about tabletop RPGs. Not all of them, excuse me, but a lot. I wanted to talk a little bit about two recent movies that I watched on Blu ray, and that is Forbidden Planet and Repo Man. These movies are, while both science fiction, very different films for a lot of reasons. Forbidden Planet is one that I've loved for a really long time. I saw it, I didn't see it when I was young. I saw it probably in my early 20s, but I've always loved science fiction. I love a lot of older science fiction and new. But the 50s had a lot of like your rocket ship to the moon kind of movies, and a lot of them were very dull. There were a lot of them, and a lot of them were very low budget and not very good. Forbidden Planet broke a lot of those rules. One, it does not look low budget. I mean, it's a gorgeous film with a lot of really cool props and sets and cool special effects. All of that has a very experimental soundtrack or score. That is great. Cool costumes, awesome design on Robbie the Robot, blah, blah, blah. It's also, I think, maybe the first film to really deal with the idea of humanity way out in space. This isn't about flying to the moon or to Mars or Venus or what have you. This is about humanity out among the stars. And it's why I have seen this mentioned several times as being kind of a proto-Star Trek. I believe, I'm sure Roddenberry saw it, and I think that there were elements of this that made their way into the original series of Star Trek, certain ideas, vibes, if you will. So, what's the movie? It's basically Shakespeare's The Tempest, but told in space. You have the very smart scientisty type guy who ends up through various means becoming super intelligent, and he discovers this ancient species that's lived on this planet way back. There's machines, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. And then you have the ship and Leslie Nielsen and his crew arriving to, rescue them, and then find out that all this stuff is going on. And there's an invisible monster. There's like all kinds of stuff going on. Why do I bring this into things? Well, I saw something recently, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. It may have been in the Game Master's Guide to Proactive, Creating Proactive Players, whatever the name of that book is that I looked at on the channel here a while back, and I actually read and did a written review of at time of recording like a couple of months ago. I think it may have been in that book where the person mentioned that they kept a journal near their end table, whatever, and they would lift plot ideas out of everything that they were watching. They would just pluck out ideas and write them down, and then revisit those ideas when they were doing adventure design, when they were trying to come up with characters. And it didn't matter, what you were pulling out. Maybe you really liked the way a certain character worked, or you really liked a certain element of an idea, whatever. So I decided I was going to start doing that. I had this journal that I used to keep for recording movies, but I use Letterboxd now, and I have for years, but this journal was just sort of sitting there half full without anything going on. So I thought I would continue the theme of movies, but I would make it something that I could fill in for games. And I've been trying to take one idea from each of these films that I've been watching recently. And sometimes the idea is just an item that's in the film, whatever. but I'm trying to pull at least one thing out of each thing that I watch to just have some ideas. So, what did I come up with for this? Some of them are genre specific, some of them are not. My genre specific idea for this was let's see. A wizard sent his mind too deep into the multiverse and he absorbed too much power. He is trying to do, he's now trying to do more, but feels it all slipping away. He used the initial burst of power to build a super powerful robot servant, or mechanical servant of some kind, and that's it. I mean, that's a part of the basic premise of the film. But I thought, oh, make it a wizard. That could be a cool idea. It's not always going to be quite so direct. I had actually originally thought of just a big, super intelligent but not willful mechanical servitor. I had thought about that. A couple of other ideas from the film, but that was the one I just decided to write down. This is not a science. It's not important that you do it in a certain way. It's not even important that you do it. If you like the idea, I would recommend it. Repo Men, very different movie. This is kind of it's not particularly well liked. It didn't do very well as far as I know. I like it. I liked it in the theater. I have liked it upon subsequent rewatch. I just enjoy it as a film. But it's a nasty little movie. It's got some real, just ugly stuff. Your two protagonists, Jude Law and Forrest Whitaker here, they are playing really bad people. Bad people. Theoretically, Jude Law is the hero of the film, but he's not a hero. He's a bad person who only kind of starts doing some good when it affects him directly. He's not a good person. And I think that that's hard for some people to get behind. But, he's never really depicted as a good person. He's depicted as a bad person who eventually, through circumstances, starts trying to do some good. But he's a bad person. And I also kind of like that he and Forrest Whitaker, they're both morons in it. There's a joke in it at one point about thick skulls, small brains, and that's because that's what they are. They're a couple of idiots, and I kind of like that. It's weird. It's different for protagonists. It's also got Alice Braga, who was in everything around 2010 in that general area. I feel like Alice Braga was in almost everything I went to see in the theater. It was really getting kind of ridiculous, and I have no problem with Alice Braga. I like Alice Braga, but it was like every genre film that came out, she was in it. And a lot of times, unfortunately, she didn't have an awful lot to do. She has a little more to do in this one than some. But, like I Am Legend, she just basically shows up at the point where the writers decided to stop taking the original work very seriously and turn it into a crap fest. So it's not her fault that she shows up when the movie turns to crap. But when she shows up, the movie turns to crap. It's just, one of those things. Anyway. What is the idea I took out of this? Well, again, taking the basic premise, except giving it a little bit of a fantasy twist. This is more cyberpunk, but you could do this sort of fantasy. And my idea was there's a secretive guild, a secretive guild has been selling magical prosthetics, but demanding a horrible, endless fee from the people who get those magical prosthetics. When people can't pay, they send specially trained hunter teams to retrieve the artifacts. And I just kind of thought that was a cool idea. You have say you have like an urban setting or something, and there's an enclave of, in your sort of D&D-esque fantasy, it would be like gnomes or something like that. But you could have wizards or whatever, and they are crafting things like, maybe somebody got their eye, cut out or something. And so they craft a little magical eye for that person to use. Or the person got sick, and so they craft some kind of magical thing in here to keep their heart going. Or, whatever that need is for them, an arm, a leg, whatever. They get it. They get it done. They pay the price, but they have to keep paying a price, and it's too steep. And eventually, they have to, they can't pay, and this group sends people after them, and maybe the people have, maybe the enclave of these wizards or something has connections to the law, or it's all outside the law and considered illegal, so you can't really go to the police, like with drug dealers. You hear that. I have heard several variations of the story where somebody calls the police to tell them that their drug dealer stole money from them or something like that. It's like you can't go to the authorities to complain about somebody doing something illegal around the thing that you did that was illegal. So anyway, I thought it could make for some cool moral quandaries and a cool little, like, villain clan to fight against or something. You've got these magical organ leggers or something. Anyway, so that was an idea that I got while watching, a couple ideas I got while watching these movies. And again, even though Forbidden Planet plays on TCM fairly frequently, I didn't go trying to look up and see if Repo Men was available. But I know in the past I've tried to watch, various movies, and they're not. So I have them. Anytime I want to watch them, I can pop them in my Blu-ray player and enjoy these movies, because physical media is awesome. Even though I am, I say that, and I am actually trimming my collection, and I'm trimming my collection fairly substantially, but I worked at places where I got super steep discounts in my past and ended up with just a crap ton of, I would buy movies just to fill out a buy two, get two free or that kind of thing. So I just this morning watched Agent Cody Banks, which I hadn't watched in more than 15 years, probably close to 20 years. The movie's a little over 20 years old. And I had remembered thinking that it was a mildly amusing movie, but I watched it today and it's like, oh, this is really bad. It's not a good movie at all. But I did pluck an idea out of it. Actually, the technology that Cody Banks is going after in it, I thought had potential. And so I just wrote down a variation of the technology, the sort of, it turned nanoplague into some kind of like magical goo or something like that. Because right now my head is just very much in fantasy mode, because I've been going through a lot of Dungeon Crawl classics and stuff like that lately. So I'm very in fantasy mode, even though sci-fi is my usual genre, but blah, blah, blah. So physical media, I love it, even when I'm getting rid of a lot of it. So thank you for riding by my house with your motorcycle. Yay. Until next time, take care.